Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Sky Fantasy Football Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. Nerves are starting to kick in and budget defenders are falling like flies as the deadline begins to appear over the horizon with less than 6 days left until it's pens and pencils down. My name is Andrew and I'm joined as usual by two of the most successful Sky managers in the game. Firstly, Paul McAnulty. Paul, you settled on your team yet or do you still have a lot of work to do?
I've not made too many changes this week, so I'm sure there'll be a frantic moment on Friday where messing around trying to fit someone in.
You've got to try and get like a Aston Villa versus Fulham
Yeah,
player in
that's
or
right.
something like that. Yeah, definitely. We also have former Sky winner Dan Cox with us. Dan, how is your team coming along?
Um, nah, not great. I was settled. Then Messi was doing my head in, and now all the cheap players I've got don't seem to be options anymore. So I think it's going to be a late night for me on Friday. I think I'll be up late doing my team, especially when we find out what the fixtures are. So yeah, I'm not there at all, mate. Not really.
Hey, superb. As we are live, please feel free to join the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics throughout the relevant sections and feel free to ask some questions for us to answer at the end. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams, which are 9 p.m. every Sunday evening right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. And don't forget to download our free app, which includes everything our website offers. Just search for Fantasy Football Hub wherever you get your apps. Evening, everyone on the chat. Evening to Andrew O, Matt Bell, Thomas Hartnell, Marius, Anita, Bebe, and everyone else who said hello in the chat. Welcome, everyone. So on today's podcast, we're going to discuss our final thoughts on players and strategy heading into game week 1. We're going to look at the new players added in the last week and get some ownership stats from Dan. We're going to answer most of the masses of questions we have had in. Thank you so much again, everyone, for all your questions. I'm very excited because we're going to be building our podcast 11 with you, our watchers. We'll manage the team throughout the season via live chat voting before Dan wraps it up with his weekly rant. So firstly, Paul, can I come to you for your latest thoughts on players and strategy going into game week 1?
Yeah, I've started moving away, I think, from the two big defenders, particularly with, as Dan mentioned there, and yourself, with all the sub 6 million defenders disappearing. So the only defender that's been in all my drafts, Van Dijk. I'm pretty set on having him. I think Robertson offers similar value to him, points per million, but um, the sort of safety element as well with Van Dijk's ownership. So he'll definitely be my team. Then I've looked at Doherty even though I have personal views on Doherty. I've looked at him. Tierney's been in a couple of my drafts. I still think Justin will play the first 4 games. James Justin. He didn't play in the friendly at the weekend because he was in the England under-21 squad. And I know that they've just signed a player that can play from Atlanta that can play right and left back. Justin can play right and left back as well. He played left back for Luton before signing for Leicester. I've seen from some of the Leicester forums that all Leicester fans think it'll be Justin that'll stay and that they probably won't sign another fullback based on Pereira coming back within a few months as well. So Justin and Van Dijk's the two that are definitely, I think, staying in my back for. Then Doherty and Vinagre were the other two that I was looking at. But I keep changing my mind. I know Wolves have just signed another left back as well, but I'm right in thinking that he was predominantly playing on the left side of a back three and might be there just for cover. So I've no idea. Vinagre and Doherty just now in defence along with Van Dijk and Justin. Moving into midfield, Bruno's the only lock for me. I think if Antonio's past fit, just with him playing almost out of position because he's a midfielder, 8 million midfielder in the game, and then the third spot would be made up by an enabler. We talked about Romeo, Bissouma last week, Højbjerg 7.4, Armstrong, so someone around that sort of 7 million mark. And then up front, Werner and Aubameyang are both locks in my team, and the third striker, Kane looked dreadful again the other night, but it's him or Vardy for me for the third striker spot, and it definitely will be using the money on a third big hitting striker. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm just now. McCarthy and goals. Ramsdale 6.7 as well. So those were the kind of two that I was looking for in that bracket. So Aubameyang, Werner, Bruno, Van Dijk, and Justin are all locks, and then the rest are potentially change.
Yeah, it seems that those lack of options, all the plethora of cheap defender options we talking about last week, it looks like not one of them has come through, because I had the Leicester fullback Luke Thomas in my initial draft was 4.6. I think he was either the cheapest player in the game or kind of one of them, and he enabled kind of so much around you, and he put a beefy midfield, a beefy attacker, allowed Van Dijk and Robertson, obviously, whereas now that he's gone, the next probable option who's likely to play is Justin, I think, at 6.3. There's not really anyone under there. I mean, you're really scraping the barrels. Was the thing with Justin, even though Leicester quite ropey at the back, he looked decent. A bonus on the stats we touched on last week. They have got good fixtures, so I suppose if he does play, even if he gets kind of 12 or 16 points out of the 4 games. But yeah, that kind of going from 4.6 million to a 6.3. What's that? 1.7 million. We've had to find that elsewhere in our teams, haven't we? So.
If Saliba starts at 5.7 in that first game, it's a good fixture for Arsenal. But I want to try and avoid going on the app between 11:30 and 12:30, if possible. For any new players listening, the site crashes every single year, so
yeah, be careful of that. Interesting in the chat. So Andrew O says, Palace fan here, looking like Riedewald will be playing out of position in DM this season. Not sure if that's good or bad for Sky. It could be an interesting one. Mark Daniels says it's Vanagra's place to lose. Agree with that. I think that Vanagra will be okay. I think he's a really nice player in his own right. And a couple of guys have said Son ahead of Kane, which is a good, it's a really good shout. He's 10.1 Son, so it's 1.6 less. So that's the difference we were talking about there between the defenders. So sure we'll touch on that now. Dan, what are your updated thoughts in the last week of the game?
So yeah, like we said, when you got them defenders, I'd had Justin and Leicester, but then I just think how bad Leicester were from the restart. I know they had injuries and stuff, didn't they? But I know Johnny Evans is suspended in the first 3, and I do worry a bit because I did think him, and like you said, Thomas, but Thomas now don't look like an option. And Justin, I don't know, he probably still will be all right, but it's a bit of a concern how bad they were from the restart. Like we said last week against Saliba, I thought was going to be 5.7 mil, like straight in your team, but he didn't start that, so it's a bit of a concern. I don't want to take really any risks for this 4-game period. You know what I mean? I'm tempted to just like spread the value around the team a bit and just get a team of 11 players, that are going to play, rather than I don't know. I don't want to be here next Sunday and 2 of my players haven't played. So the cheap ones, yeah. I don't know really. I still think Vinagra, he'll be okay because the new guy that signed, Marcel or whatever, he's older, isn't he? I think he's 30 or 31 and didn't play many games last year. So I still think he'll be all right. But yeah, it's just a concern over them cheap defenders. My main thing all week has been if Messi came. Because if Messi came, I know he's only $1 million more than Salah and that, but that would have been a bit of a pain, wouldn't it?
Are you still on 4-3-3 with double expensive defence?
Yeah, Van Dijk and Robertson, something like that, and a couple of cheapies, and mainly having the 3 big hitters up front. I've got Kane, Werner, and Aubameyang. The front 3 hasn't changed. It's just them defenders. I don't know whether to spread the value around a bit and get in some 8, that are going to play, rather than just, I don't know, someone who's not going to play.
Okay, so I suppose in terms of my thoughts then, so a bit like you, Paul, I'm not convinced with Spurs against Everton. I think Everton are going to be a decent outfit. Spurs haven't looked good. Agree with the chat that Son could potentially be a good option. The problem if you go with Son is the vast majority of experienced managers will likely go with Kane, I would guess. And if Kane does bang, which, however unlikely it is, if he gets a couple of goals and Son doesn't, you're 30, 40 points behind with only a day in, so it's a bit nervy, that
Kane's
one.
He's not majorly owned, Kane. He's only in 16% of teams. I know we have still got a week to go. He's in 16% and Son's in 5%, so it's not major.
Yeah, but that's 16% of teams, which includes 95% of managers who maybe not that experienced at the game. In terms of the 5% who are experienced, I would guess that Kane is or will be in probably 50%, I would guess. I mean, that's, as you say, that is a guess, but that's the worry. And do you really want to be taking that risk this early on? But I don't know. It's tough. Obviously, Vardy's an option. I just can't get excited about Vardy. Just can't get excited about Leicester at all. But you know what Vardy's like. He done one last year, didn't he? When was it against Villa in the last game before lockdown? Or I think it was, wasn't it? Where you thought you were safe. He didn't even
start, did he?
No, you thought you were safe, and he scored 2 goals in the last 5 minutes or something, and just absolutely, I'm not sure if it was that game, but it was, it was a game like that, which is a bit of a killer. So I have considered going with Højbjerg anyway, because I do think he's going to be a good option. He could be a captaincy option for that day, and maybe because I am concerned about Salah on the Saturday as well. Again, is this toss up between Aubameyang and Salah. You know what Aubameyang's like? He's so bloody inconsistent. The last thing you want to get on day one is Aubameyang to blank in the opener, and then Salah to go and smash in a hat trick at 5:30. Which would that be surprising? Really, probably not. So it's So I'm my kind of thought at the moment of balancing that whole Aubameyang, Salah, Kane. I'm just. Don't even mind it yet. I just want a sound start. I don't want to, try and trailblaze or whatever. Or I don't want to fall 40 points behind the pack either. And also, Liverpool have got Arsenal on the Monday night in game week 3 as well. And Liverpool at home to Arsenal. Okay, Arsenal have improved, but Liverpool usually score 3 or 4 at home to Arsenal as well. I think they have the last few years. So that's a concern as well. We're not having Salah. But that... obviously, the lack of cheap defenders at the moment. I am on 4-3-3 still, so I changed Thomas for Justin in my team, and that meant I can't remember who I had exactly. Oh, I know what I've done. I've actually taken out Robertson as when you mentioned Paul in terms of maybe I'm the 2. I've changed Robertson to Azpilicueta. I think we all mentioned last week that we thought Azpilicueta was underpriced. That he's probably nailed for the first 4. That frees up over $1 million, and that's kind of enabled that then. I did have a message. I tried to find it, and I feel awful, but I did have a tweet of someone who mentioned that Josh Brownhill for Burnley should be nailed at the start of the season, and he's only something like 5.6 million, just as a pure enabler. And I was tempted with that, but obviously Burnley missed the first game of the season as well, don't they? So you'd only have him for the 3. It would be just an enabler, but it is something to maybe, think about potentially. And just in terms of team structure, I've been having some more thoughts, as we mentioned. I think Bruno's a lock. I think in my other 2 spots throughout the season, my kind of strategy is going to be using one, as kind of a points machine. So I'm thinking someone like a Højbjerg, someone like that. And then for my other one, maybe going for a bit more of like an attacking. And so, at the moment, someone like Antonio as an example, he's not going to get any bonus, but he could get a goal or 2, especially in that first week. So that's just a bit of a strategic thing I'm thinking about is trying to give roles within my team. And the last thing, I'm just getting more and more worried about Chelsea. Havertz, Pulisic, for their game week 3 and game week 4, they've got some nice fixtures. I'm just thinking maybe, of potentially bringing one in for the game week 3 or game week 4. I think they'll be low owned. I think they could be very explosive, and it could be differential. So that's just kind of, thoughts at the moment on my team and where I am and stuff. Thomas Hartnell, Kane usually starts slow, which is putting me off absolutely. And Matt Bell, Kane always shocking at the start of the season. He is, but it's strange enough, in Sky, and he's the same in Dream Team for Son as well. He just seems to always get the points from somewhere. He just seems to get them. Andrew O, he had one shot on target against Iceland. I didn't watch the match, but it doesn't sound good. Aaron
He
Alton.
should have had it. He did score. I know that was offside
Yeah.
or whatever. Shouldn't have been, but
Yeah.
he did score though, didn't he? Like
Yeah.
Kane's just one of them ones.
He's 90 minutes as well is the thing, right? So, there's...
Problem is, they've got all them Europa League games, haven't they?
Yeah,
and
they have.
They're probably playing them as well, so he's probably going to play 8 games in the first month or so, isn't he?
And the thing with Kane, and it's happened more than once actually, is Kane will do nothing for 90 minutes, but then he'll get like a penalty in the 93rd minute, and all of a sudden, takes the penalty, gets his shots on goal bonus, and because he's sometimes scored the winning goal, he gets man of the match, and from absolutely nothing, he gets all those points. So Aaron Alton says Ings has good fixtures. Andrew Lee asks, is Salah on pens for Liverpool? I think so, unless Milner's on the pitch. I think Milner did play, didn't he, in the Community Shield. So I think when Milner's on the pitch, he is, but I doubt he's in their first 11. And Bear Brownhill for 3 games, 6 points. Things really are tough for budget. Yeah, if he was playing the 4, I think he may be an option, but 3. Anyway, sorry, one last question from Matt Bell. We're worried that Werner will play off the left and not be involved as much. Well, maybe. I don't think it matters. Honestly, any thoughts, guys, on that?
Well, Werner's played off the left all his career, and if you look at his goals to games ratio,
28 goals in 34 games last season. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Werner's he's the second most selected striker as well. So do you want to go against that many teams from the off? Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of thing I'm not going to, I just want to stick with the packs for the overhaul. So to see him as the second most selected striker makes me just want to have him just to keep up with everyone.
Yeah, with Havertz only coming in just now, and Zajček and Pulisic both having injury doubts, that almost cements like Werner being like a must in my view.
Agree. You don't want to be kind of wasting a transfer, having to scramble budget together in game week 3 to get him in either. He's being there. Okay, Dan, do you want to run through the new players that have been added to the game and some ownership stats?
Yeah, so a mate of ours, he compiles all these for us, so it's an easy to-do list. A lot of them you're not going to be interested in, like Fraser Forster's been added. People said he's back at Southampton this year, but I still think McCarthy starts. The guy Mitchell, is it Mitchell from Palace they were talking about? I don't think he's going to play, but he's been added. He's 5.2. Thiago Silva, 9.2. One to watch again. Lamina, he was at Bournemouth when he...
Yeah. I
don't know. Maybe one to keep an eye on. 6.7 million. Jack Rodwell, I was surprised he still plays, to be honest, but he's 5.7. Eze Palace, 7 million.
He could be a good option, but he got injured, didn't he?
Do you know, I haven't had a chance to check what happened really with the games yesterday, but he got a knock, did he? The guy Leeds signed, a just brilliant name, innit? Robin Koch, 7.2. Have to see how he gets on. The guy Gabriel signed for Arsenal, 8 million. Matty Cash at Villa, 6.5, but Villa are pretty shit, aren't they?
He's a nice player though, that Matty Cash.
Yeah, I've heard he's a good little player. Van der Beek, 8.5. Could be quite a good price, really. Depends how much game time he's getting and if he's getting passes and, what he is. Rodrigo at Leeds, 8.8. Havertz, 9.9. Probably one to just watch for me because that's quite a hefty price in it, but he could be good for that. James Rodriguez, that's gone through now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I must have gone through. He's 8.9. The guy that has signed for Leicester, the left back, Castanet, probably said that wrong, 7.6. Allen, 8.1.
He could be an interesting option. We got a question about him, so we'll ask it now, I suppose. What are your thoughts on Allen, Dan?
So I looked at some of the stats. Like he didn't play many games, did he? I haven't proper looked into it, but he didn't play many games last year. But before, when he was there with Ancelotti, he was playing more and he was getting a lot of tackles. So I don't know. I don't know if I have him in from the off or he's definitely on the watch list. Have to see how he gets on in the first few games. I'm also a bit worried about players that sign now if they'll bung them straight in on Saturday. So I'm not sure yet. I think he might be one to watch, but I think it'd be good. What about yourself? Do you?
I just think when you can get Højbjerg at 7 0.4, who's 0.7 less, who's kind of proven, you know what you're getting. I think he's just a better option at the moment. But we can see Everton have got nice games after the Spurs game. Kind of look and see for after overhaul maybe. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I like him. Idris Gueye was one of my favourite players in Sky Fantasy Football, and I've never seen Alan play, so I'm not making that comparison. But from his profile, tough tackling, ball playing, short passes out, sounds like a similar sort of mould to that type of player that does well in the Sky game, but not so much in other fantasy games.
I think it could maybe, lighten the appeal of Luca Dean maybe and Pickford, as well. If Everton can be really tight. Everton were really tight at the start of last season. I'm sure they kept someone like 3 or 4 clean sheets on the bounce at the start of last year. So if they can rediscover that form, then Everton defenders could be back in the mix for the overhaul maybe. But who's next, Dan?
The last one I've got of note is Ceballos back to Arsenal, 8.2 million. I don't know, really. I don't know. I suppose he's one on the list, but like I say, I'd probably rather have Antonio for 8 million, and he's only got to score 1 goal in the first 4 games, and he's probably matched him for any sort of bonus he's going to get, isn't he?
He started a mini bandwagon one game last season. I think they won 2-1. Arsenal, I can't remember who they were playing. And a lot of people transferred them in after that game, and then he did nothing.
Yeah, he had a couple of assists, I think, in that game, didn't he? And he played really well. He kind of ran the whole game, and then he didn't do much. But I do think he was on corners of things. But obviously, with Willian there now, you'd assume that William.
Yeah.
Just a couple of notes. Sorry, I forgot to mention earlier on potential players who I do think may actually do okay. So I think there's 3 striking options just based on the things we mentioned there. I'm not saying to start with them. I won't be starting with them, but in that kind of cheap third striker mould, if anyone is that way inclined, I do think that Everton, have a building a nice team, and after Spurs they've got a nice 3, and I think that it looks like the way they're going to shape up is Calvert-Lewin up front by himself, with potentially Richarlison on the left and Rodriguez on the right. He's going to get a lot of service there, and I think he could be a decent option. We'll see. If Callum Wilson signs for Newcastle, so Newcastle have got some really nice fixtures, very good striker as well. I don't think he's in the game yet, but I wouldn't imagine him coming in any more than kind of, maybe 8.5 million. He could be. And if you've got something like Mitrovic or something like that, potentially could be something to go out for. The one I'm interested in, and I'm going to get laughed at this because he's one of those punty ones. But
write him down. Hang on,
it's not Wesley, is it?
It's not. No, it's Eddie Nketiah. So he scored a hat trick for England's under 21s on Friday. He started up front in the Community Shield. He nearly scored in that game as well. Alisson made a really good save. He looked very good towards the end of last season. Plays as a central striker with Aubameyang on his left. So, if you remember the goal in that game, Aubameyang, he got the ball up wide on the left, kind of cut in, had a really good finish. But that Nketiah is 6.7 million, as a striker. They've got Fulham and West Ham first 2 games.
He's 7.7.
Oh, 7.7, apologies. But he's, very cheap, and he could be a good one. Maybe not re-overhaul, but looking more forward to the season, especially if Lacazette leaves. I think could be a good option. But they're just, I got more options. Kind of, I'm not going to bend with Dan this time that Calvert-Lewin and Nketiah and Wilson score more than Kane, Salah, and Werner or anything stupid like. Yeah, just a few more options then. Okay, and what about some ownerships, Dan? This is the interesting stuff. The ownership.
So hopefully you listened last week. Most people did. They haven't really changed. Tim in our WhatsApp chat did make a good point that probably not much 2-point going over them because that'll be this week they change, but they haven't moved. There's only a couple that, Werner was the 3rd most picked striker. He's now the 2nd most picked striker. I think that's pretty much it in the movement. There hasn't been a lot, but I'll just quickly run through them. Pope on 22%, Alisson on 12%, Patricio 11%, Schmeichel on 9%, Edison on 8%. So it does make it, like, if you probably did a Twitter like what the percentages were, that wouldn't be half of these. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think anyone's really going to start with Pope, are they, when he's only playing 3 games? Same with Edison. So yeah, I don't know. But I'm going to keep an eye on these listeners keep an eye on it as well. But defenders: Trent 37%, Van Dijk 32%, Doherty 19%, Soyuncu 17%, Robertson 12%, Tierney 12%, Egan 11%, Wan-Bissaka 11%, Cody 8%, and Stevens 7%. None of them really moved. Bear been keeping an eye on him on Twitter. He's a good Twitter account to check because he's been putting these out daily. Midfielders: De Bruyne 49%, Fernandes 34%, Grealish 19%, quite surprising, Traore 17%, Willian 16%, Antonio 15%, Mount 12%, Pulisic 8%, St. Maxim, Newcastle 8%, can't read my handwriting, Foden on 8%, Jordan Henderson on 8%, and Ziyech on 6%. So that's the sort of, I did go down a fair bit on them, but that's them. And the strikers: Aubameyang on 36%, Werner 23%, Salah 23%, Mane 19%, Greenwood 17%, Kane 16%, Ings 15%, Vardy 15%, then Sterling on 14%, and Martial on 9%.
Okay, they're a bit lower, aren't they, than the other ones? It's quite surprised, I suppose, Martial's and Kane's, things like that. I thought they'd been higher, especially with the game on a Sunday. But this is the thing: is it's taking into account, what is it now? Hundreds of thousands of teams. A lot of them.
500. I think 500,000 teams again. You think that would be going up this year?
Cool. Thanks for that, Dan. Paul, anything interesting there for you? And any of the stats or anything, ownership stats?
Yeah, I'm just surprised at some of the high ownership, like Soyuncu with the price hike, the problems that Leicester's got defensively at the moment. Johnny Evans is suspended. Grealish didn't finish the season particularly well, and they only get 3 games out of the 4 as well.
I agree. Okay, so before we get onto some questions, then just a quick plug for the Hub. So the Hub preseason content is unrivaled. If you play Sky FF, FPL, Telegraph, Fan Team, Sun Dream Team, or Footstock, we have reams of articles coming out every day. So if you haven't seen them, take a look. For Sky specifically, they include a how to play Sky Fantasy guide for beginners or players new to the game, and more advanced how to win guide. And current Sky champion Liam Dorrian also published an article detailing how he won Sky Fantasy just a few weeks ago. Mark Edworthy posted a 7 top tips this week too. They're all on the website alongside Ian Parrin's famed Sky Planner and our other amazing tools on the Hub website, and all now on the app. Dan has also published his early thoughts and 5 players to look out for. So we have you completely covered for Sky Fantasy and everything else. Sky champions Dan and Liam will both be revealing their Game Week 1 teams exclusively for Hub members in the days leading up to the big kickoff. You won't want to miss those. There's also a £500 cash mini league for Hub members. So if you needed another reason to join, there it is. All the links for everything we talked about are in the YouTube description below. Us 3 and Sky champ Liam Dorrian, who was on last week and will be on in the future, are also in the Home Nations Cup, each representing a British country or island. A lot of pride at stake there too. We'll kind of report back on that every week. Someone put me to
call it the 4 Nations, mate.
The 4 Nations, is it? Okay.
Someone was moaning at me because we called it the Home Nations.
Oh, was it? Okay. Someone put me a 14-1 outsider on Twitter for that, so I'm looking forward to making that person eat their words, but we'll see. And just as a side note, one of our regular watchers, Gary Precious, is running a King of Kings competition which combines FPL, Sky and Sun Dream Team scores. I've played in it for many years. I know Gary very, very well. It's a brilliant competition and a massive test for true all-round fantasy managers. If anyone is interested, get in touch with @GaryPrecious. So onto some questions then, and we've had masses of questions tonight, so I've tried to group them all best as possible. So first, Spurs. We had questions from Ollie Poole, Jonathan Maloney and Lee Williams all around Spurs. So what are your thoughts on Spurs assets? Is Højbjerg the best option with Souček looking a doubt? And what do we think of Doherty, Davis, Son and Ali and Kane? So Paul, can I come to you first on what your thoughts are on Spurs players?
Yeah, and everyone's perception is that Kane had a bad season last year and was injured for quite a bit of time, but you go and have a look at the points, and he scored 193 points. So shots bonus, game-winning goals, like you mentioned before, tendency for picking up man of the match. I just think he's going to be really highly owned, and although you could see the first 4 weeks pre-overhaul as an opportunity to make some gambles to get ahead of the crowd, for me it's about consolidation. Don't use transfers and stay with the pack. Don't look at rank, because people burn through transfers to try and get their moment of glory for being at the top of the leaderboards at the start of the season. But I'm going to go with Kane. I'd mentioned Doherty was somebody I was looking at. I think Lloris, 7 million, I think is a good option pre-overhaul. I wouldn't. Son's one of those players that I can never seem to get on him at the right time, and I know that people do benefit from him, and he will get decent points tally over the season. Could outperform Kane. I just think if there's more chance of Kane exploding, I guess this is why the premium price comes into it, than there is Son. I think even if Son outperformed them, it wouldn't be too bad. Whereas if Kane netted a hat-trick, I think it'd be a dent, not a massive struggle. There's a lot of time to make up, but that's my views. And Højbjerg at 7.4 is a nice price point as well. Might pick up passes, good chance of picking up tackles.
Yeah, I think I've managed to hit Son's. I can't remember if he's had 2 red cards or 3, but I've managed to hit them all. Because there was a -4 last year, which just absolutely, talk about punch in the stomach when you've carefully planned, you've got him in, he was playing really well, and all he does is get a red card. And that happened. It's happened either twice or 3 times in the last.
Mark Edworthy will tell you, because he brought him in. I think every time he got a red. Yeah,
exactly the same as me.
There's 3. He joins the players. What used to be Wilf Zaha, so I never ever sign him now. And Marcus Rashford does it to me every time. He goes on a streak and I bring him in. So those are players that I'm probably never putting on my team again.
Dan, any thoughts on Spurs? Are you excited about them?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm a bit gutted that Dyer's not listed as a defender, because as a midfielder in Sky, yeah, he might get passing or whatever, but for me, if he was defender, yeah, I'd have him, I think, but not as a midfielder. But yeah, Doherty should do all right, and Højbjerg. Everyone, you've just basically said, really. I can't add anything to what you just said, but yeah, I think Spurs. Mourinho's one of them ones who always lets me down. Like, I know when I had players when he was at United, and then he just kills them, doesn't he? And he's one of them ones. I hate having his players, but surely they're going to do all right this year, Spurs. So, yeah, fingers crossed for them.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to really add there. I think Højbjerg is a good pick. I think he's quite cheap. I think he'd be a good pick at 8 million. I mind 7.4. And like I say, I'd probably just go with the crowd on Kane. It's not very exciting, but he plays 90 is such a big thing. Playing the full 90, they get some chances and stuff. And they're also home to Newcastle in game week 3 as well. Good captaincy option on the Saturday for game week 3. So, I think Chelsea, I want to say they're away to West Brom on the same day. So, they could be happening there otherwise. But, I just think...
Sorry, mate. I hadn't looked. Has that game been moved to the Sunday, the Newcastle game? Or is it likely to get moved because of the Europa League and that?
I don't know. I looked earlier and it was on the Saturday. But,
yeah.
I did read... I tell you a point I've taken on board from Mark Edworthy's 7 top tips. I think it was like the 3rd or 4th point, and it really kind of, hit home with me. And it was, if you're really scared of a player doing something, just get him in. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Kane. I would dread to, on that Sunday, I'm not really scared of anyone apart from Kane. And I think if I haven't got Kane, and I'm also a Spurs fan, right? So if Spurs win 2-0 and Kane scores 2 goals, okay, Spurs fan, brilliant, right? But Sky teams down the sword in game week 1 where, Vardy's not going to have that much ownership. Some won't have that much ownership. If that happens, it happens. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. If a lot of the time you don't need to try and be different. I think if you consistently just pick the obvious one, which is, it's said and done. I think that's an example on that. We have had a couple of questions, a couple of points around Armstrong. Alistair Milroy, and there was a question further up as well about Armstrong at 7.1. He could, potentially be a good option. My only thing with Southampton, I know it's a very simplistic way of looking at things. I just think the other teams just tend to score more goals, which is why I tend to go with them. But Dan, what are your thoughts on Armstrong?
Yeah, I don't think I've got him. I've had him in a team. Yeah. I don't know if he's in my latest draft, but I've had him in there because he's 7.1, I think.
Yeah, he's cheap.
He is a good price. Like I say, even if he just gets you 8 points to the overhaul, that's all right. But he's on the short list, and I've had him in a draft. But yeah, I like him as a pick, and he's a good price. So I'd say yes to him.
Okay, and a question from Tom Hartnell. This is on Leicester, and it's just, does Leicester sign the fullback change your Justin pick? So I just suppose a yes or no for this. So I've got, just at the moment, Paul, you still okay with Justin?
I think he'll play, yeah.
Yeah, and Dan?
Yeah, I think he'll play.
Okay. So we're all on yeses still at the moment, because we think even if he doesn't play right back, he'll probably take Luke Thomas's place.
When Pereira's back, won't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But this is obviously first month or so. We've got some strategic questions, so I like these ones. This is off Ron at Minsat Sky FF. Is it a better long-term strategy to captain bonus magnet defenders more often this year? This is something we talked about towards the end of last season. Strikers are great when they hit, but can often leave us feeling frustrated when they blank. Meanwhile, some defenders quietly rack up points week in, week out. So I think I touched on this towards the end of last season, and I think post-overhaul, I think that is definitely something I'll be looking to do. However, pre-overhaul, last year we didn't see many clean sheets at the start of the season. And also, we're not really sure. I'd like to have a look first, how Van Dijk and Liverpool are kind of setting up, how Laporte is getting on at Man City and wherever else, before I actually set that out as an actual kind of strategy. And I think we've all mentioned we're struggling at the moment to probably get 2 premium defenders in our teams with all the striking options available. But post overhaul, I will be setting my team up, I think, 99% with Van Dijk, Laporte, and maybe Robertson if I can afford them. But pre overhaul, I think the fixtures lean more strikers. Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
I was thinking about it earlier because I was thinking about, the first day, Aubameyang, Fulham, Salah against Leeds. And I'm thinking, you know what? I can imagine both of them not doing anything. Liverpool win 2-0, Van Dijk, clean sheet, pass and bonus, and you got 20 points there, and you want Aubameyang with just a 4-point captaincy and stuff like that. But I don't know, it does seem a bit safe, and I don't know if you say negative. I know it's a different strategy, but I know we had that week. We didn't have the week because we didn't have the transfers to have the players. But when you have the week where Kane scored a brace, Fernandes got a couple, and then and all your mids and striker, De Bruyne done something, and you got there was 200 points in the week.
I think that's what Liam said. It was that week that won him, wasn't it? Because he hit he had Aubameyang, Bruno Fernandes, Kane.
You could go, I'll have Van Dijk, and even if they concede, but he gets past and he's got 10 points, and Aubameyang might be a 2-pointer and stuff like that. And I know that probably is a better thing over the course of the season, but I don't think you can captain a defender each week and win it. You could get to a good position, but you've got to land one of them hat tricks or braces here and there. You've got to take the gamble somewhere. Just I don't want to start the season by captaining a defender when you've got all this Werner, but you can all these exciting new players come to the league, and I just don't know. Probably should do a team like it. Could even do it in my second team. I think, I'll captain Van Dijk first day, rather than you thinking about Salah and Aubameyang, and just do it that way. But it's just, we always have the chat, don't we? Like, what, it's just hindsight, really. What is
I think the post overhaul, I think it is an, but pre overhaul, like you say, at the moment it's about staying with the pack, right? And I think the pack will be captaining Aubameyang, Salah, Kane. Paul, can I ask you a question off at Kieran Piddock? With clean sheets for keepers worth more than an FPL, should we prioritise keepers with the best clean sheet potential and pay more, or go for a cheap keeper and hope for save points? What is your keeper strategy normally?
When they first added the 2 points for the keeper clean sheets, I was conscious about picking the best goalie, but there always seems to be a goalkeeper emerges from season. So it was Dean Henderson last year. I know Pope obviously got the Golden Glove last season and scored well as well. And then there was a couple of seasons ago where Pope was picking up man of the matches on a consistent basis as well. So I think based on the scoring and Dubravka as well, Dubravka,
he
he was
had a
in
lot
the
of
top.
saves, didn't he?
Yeah, and I can't ever recall seeing any Twitter teams with Dubravka in goals or anything like that. So I don't think that you need a top goalkeeper in Sky. It's weird because there isn't much of a price difference. So if you were applying these rules to other games, then I would definitely advise picking the top end goalies. But with pre-overhaul as well, with Southampton, Sheffield United having good fixtures and compact defences, so they concede a lot of their shots from edge of the box, so it's easy safe shots for the goalkeepers as well. That's kind of where my focus would be, probably one of those two goalkeepers.
Dan, question from @SkyFF_Hornet. Going for a block defence in my second team with VVD, the only additional player captaincy. Which team would you block with? So he said Sheffield United or Southampton maybe. If you were doing a block defence, which one would you go for?
Yeah, they got, like we said, Everton. What did you say? Everton, Southampton,
Sheffield United.
Even?
He said
Sheffield United. Yeah, they'd be, and they're good price, aren't they? With the keeper Ramsdale as well. So let me just hang on. Sheffield United.
It's just Arsenal that they've got. I think their other fixtures look okay.
I don't know. I probably shouldn't worry about Sheffield United, but I've got a slight worried about Sheffield United. Like I know everyone's expecting them to be solid again, but you never know, do you? So I'll keep an eye on them, I think, till the overhaul, and if they look solid again. They've got plenty of decent price players, haven't they? Like the goalkeeper and Stevens and all that.
John Egan's 7.2.
Yeah, good price.
So if you're going for a block team, one word answer?
It's Southampton, I think, based on fixtures.
I think I go for Everton. Dan?
Yeah, I know it sounds dodgy with Pickford, doesn't it? But Everton, yeah. Do you want just one word?
Yeah. I will get to the questions if we can. We still got to pick our team, which I'm excited about. Question from James Whitmore. What's the best setup for the first 4 game weeks? He's new to the game. I feel after a month I'll get the idea and go on from there. Thanks. We will show you after this when we set up our podcast team with all the watchers, which we're very excited about. Question from Daniel Ratcliffe. Is pre-season form a worry or would you not consider it? I personally don't really look at it. I know that Liverpool scored 7 and Salah didn't score. If Liverpool score 7 in any other game, Salah would probably score 3 or 4 of them. That's my thoughts. Anything there, Paul?
Do you remember the season that Mario Boselli scored? He signed for Wigan and scored something like 10 goals in pre-season, and he was the budget forward in everybody's team. Yeah. And I don't think he ever scored for Wigan. I wouldn't look at pre-season.
I think it's very important. Dan, I understand security of starts is essential, not to take risks, but at what point in the season can you go on gut instinct, even if it swims against the tide? It has to work sometime. Think Cantwell or Ings last season or Mahrez's breakout. That's a question off Andrew Ogden. After overhaul is probably a good starting point. Maybe we can talk about this more with Ian Parry when we do our overhaul special, kind of post-overhaul strategy. We maybe start talking about this sort of stuff, I would say. Has anyone got anything now for that? No, you happy, guys? No.
Like we've said before, like it's 4 weeks, so it's just like a marathon. And go the first mile, we're just like elbow each other and stuff, and just get to that point, and then I say just assess everything and then go for it from there. But just keep with the pack and keep the transfers to a minimum, and don't go doing 6 or 7 or 8 transfers before the overhaul. Just suss out what's happening and what's what, and basically take the overhaul as a sort of start from the season, really. Like that is you're planning as far ahead as you can, and this, that, and the other. And the first 4 weeks is just whatever, really. Just
I don't like the overhaul because I think it just allows, like this game week 1 team now, which should be really, really important. Just like it is that important because at game week 4 you can just do whatever you want, can't you? But anyway, that's a different podcast. Now think,
how are we calling him Alan, or is he like Elaine or whatever? Alan at Everton, you might think, he's going to get tackle bonus, so we'll put him in now, and we'll predicting that, and someone who just ain't got a clue could just look at it after 4 weeks and be like, "Oh yeah, he's good. He's whatever," and I'll bung him in, and you think I had him from the off, so it is what it is.
Leon Hobson asks, what you think is the current template 11? Concerned my current team looks very similar to the drafts I'd seen. We'll probably see the template 11 in a minute when we do our team. Just don't worry. But I would also say, Leon, don't be concerned about having a different team. The kind of drafts you're going to see off the people on this podcast. Dan, former winner. Liam was on last week, won it last year. Paul's finished fourth. All the guys in the chat, we've got some very, very experienced players. It's not about getting ahead after 4 weeks. So don't be concerned about it. One Mad World. If I'm planning to have Bruno long term, is it worth having him in your starting 11 from game week 1 with a game less? So he is in all our teams, so we're not going to bother kind of talking about that. So there's an overhaul after game week 4. So you're getting Bruno for the 3 games. He's a capture option in game week 2, home to Palace. Probably get him in your starting 11, but again, we'll see now when we do our team in a bit. Couple of A or B. So one word answers, guys, off at Fish FPL. We're deciding between Vardy or Kane to move over to KDB in game week 2 or 3. So if you were to go with one now, Paul, Kane or Vardy?
Kane, based on what we've discussed already.
Dan, Kane or Vardy?
I do like Vardy.
Vardy. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I would say Kane. Tala Islam. For tomorrow's podcast, could you please mention and talk about the following players? Greenwood, Havertz, Saka, Vinagre, Ayling and Justin. So we've talked about Justin. We've talked about Vinagre. I think we've touched on Havertz, a bit of a wait and see. Greenwood, probably a wait and see to start. Saka is probably one we haven't talked about. Are you tempted by Saka? He's I think he's cheap. 7, I think, yeah. Anyone tempted by Saka to start off with?
Go on, Paul.
He's not something that's tempted me, but if he is only 7 million. It's good price.
It is, and he's.
I wouldn't talk someone out of it. Basically,
I think when he plays, he tends to play in the front 3. Kind of somewhere in the front 3. He's a really nice player. It's obviously if he starts every game, because he did miss a few towards the end of last year. Obviously, then you're stuck with 0 points. And Dan, could you answer Ayling on Leeds? Be able to get excited about any promoted teams players?
No, I don't. I'll probably avoid all Leeds, Villa, and West Brom, to be honest, till the first. Yeah, no, I don't like going for them. Like, I don't even have anyone from Norwich in my team last season. No, not for me.
I think Pereira at West Brom, I think he was 7.7. I think he could be a good pick, but again, you kind of want to wait and see how he beds in.
Oh, I'll tell you. I checked out. Diagana, he's 6.8. 6.8.
There you go. So Tom Klimpson in the chat asked about Diangana as well. So he's just signed. Do we think he's going to just walk in the team and play the first 4 games? I don't know.
He played 30 games. Did he play 30? I'm sure he played 30 or so games last season. So
he was in their strongest 11 last season.
I can't see why he wouldn't. Yeah. West Ham are going nuts that they sold him as well. So he's obviously decent, isn't he? I remember actually having him. Did you have him a couple of seasons ago, Paul? When he was playing for West Ham and he was about 5 mil or something like that?
Don't think so.
No, I had him a couple of seasons ago when he was playing for West Ham, and he was really cheap then, so I remembered him.
On Ayling, if I was going to Leeds defender, I'd save the 0.6 and get Dallas 6.4.
Paul, a couple more. At Rob Watson Lang. Who do you think will be the top 5 players for tackle bonus this season following the rules tweak? Nice question. Paul, so you looked at all the stats last week. I think we touched on a couple of them. Could be.
Yeah, so I guess I won't include Vinagre and Justin because they're probably not going to play long term. Ndidi, Wan-Bissaka, Robertson,
Pereira,
and Allen from Everton.
Nice answer. Anything else there, Dan, to add to that?
No, same.
Cool. I think if Pereira played half the season, he'd still be in the top 5.
Yeah,
he's an hand, isn't he? Ian Parry at Planet Sky. How many blank game week 1 players will you have in your starting 11? I think we're all on one, probably all on Bruno, I think.
Yeah.
Second
Bruno.
question, how many additional City or United players will we be bringing in before the overhaul? The moment at the moment I think, again, we're all planning on probably Aubameyang to KDB. I'm not planning any more at the moment. Personally, I'm thinking more of like a Chelsea player potentially. I do like Martial, but see, are you guys planning any more City or United? Any City or United players?
What if Aguero's in the starting lineup for Wolves?
Well, this is it. This is it.
That might be a bit like, oh, here we go. I don't think so. I think De Bruyne will be enough. You could bring in another. Do you know what I mean? But you don't need to, and you don't really want to be making too many transfers, do you, before overhaul? If you think that if Aguero's starting and you think he's going to score 2 or 3, yeah, bring him in. But one will do, won't it, for that single game day? So I think most people will just be on one.
And would the answer be different? Oh, apologies, Paul. Go on.
No, sorry. Last season, so I had this like the plan last season not to do anything. But one of my best moves that I made last season was on game week 3, where Man City were playing Newcastle. Man City, I hadn't planned on any transfers because I already had Sterling or KDB. I can't remember, one of the two. And the lineup came up, and Aguero was starting, and Jesus wasn't on the bench, so he picked up an injury. And then brought in Aguero. Then he scored 2, and then scored 2 in game week 4 as well. So if there was something similar, in game week 3 where Man City is at home to Leicester, you don't see the lineup. But if news came out that there was an injury to Jesus, and therefore Aguero starting the next 2, I think that'd be similar.
You need to keep on your toes, don't you? Okay, more questions then. Man United question. United haven't had any minutes into their legs, whereas Palace and Brighton seem to be finding their defensive form in the friendlies. Is it a risk to expect too much from the game week 2 and 3 fixtures for United, as it's a tough road from 4 to 8? So obviously 4 to 8 doesn't matter at all. There will be a 2-week break. We'll do an overhaul special where we'll go over all the overhaul stuff. Game week 2 and 3, I just think United, the way they were last season, just incredibly attacked. I think Martial is a wonderful player. I think Bruno's a great player. Rashford, and Greenwood are probably not, playing at their sort of levels at the moment. They've just signed Van der Beek, who'll probably sit a lot alongside Pogba. I just think they're going to be a wonderful team this year. So I personally wouldn't overthink it. Paul, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and you can ask Dan about not holding Bruno for however long he did last season, and it's painful to watch every game. We've already kind of earmarked moves that a lot of seasoned managers are going to make, and there's going to be a lot of people on Bruno as captain in game week 2.
There was a couple more questions. So Everton's we've touched on, Alan, we've touched on Calvert-Lewin. And there's a couple of questions on Wolves from James Hyde about Vinagre. I think we all think Vinagre is probably safe to start the season. Anyone disagree with that? Nope. No, I think that's roughly about it for the questions. If anyone does have any more questions they want answered, please message at FFA_Sky on Twitter.
Mark Edworthy had a question in one of the WhatsApp chats. Oh. So he asked, he had wrote the article that you mentioned there about the 7 top tips. And he had asked us what our top tip would be.
Okay. Paul, since you knew about it, do you want to go first?
So this isn't less for beginners, but my biggest takeaway from last season is not using 2 transfers to make one move that I want. Both times I did it, one of the 2 players that I brought in got injured. And I didn't really want the second player in long term anyway, and I was only doing it because I had that fear of the one player. So it kind of ties in with Mark's comment about if you really want a player, so either have them or have them be reachable in one move, and then maybe by having, I guess, the most expensive player in every position, you're always in that area that you can do that.
I think mine's kind of linked to yours, and it's kind of something I touched on earlier about having a set team structure as such. A couple of times last year I forced myself into a corner by having too many premiums, for example, or too many cheap players, for example. You need to maintain that structure. Points generally don't win or lose mini leagues or the whole thing in a game week or 2. You win and lose stuff over a season. So by consistently scoring well, That's the kind of way to play. I think it is something I didn't do last year. I found myself constantly having to jiggle my team around, which I don't want to do. So structure for me is important. Dan, what is your top tip from a former champion?
There's just so many. I think one I always do is I always have a plan A and B for each player. So sometimes you'd hear on a Saturday that someone's injured or this, that, and the other. I always know what I'm going to do if something springs up. So if someone get injured, I know who I'm going to move him to and who got the good fixtures coming up. Because last thing you want is to be a Saturday at a zoo or something with your kids, and you hear that someone's out, and you're like, oh my god, like I've got my transfer planner, and God, who am I going to take him out for? So I always have a couple of exit plans for each player.
Excellent. Okay, so what we're going to try and do now, is pick our podcast 11. And what we're going to do, we're going to build our podcast 11 with the help of our watchers. The objective is for our weekly watchers to effectively manage this team through the season via a voting process to see how high we can finish as a team. This is going to be my second team. As you can see, my first team is Fergie Time. My second team is called FFH Sky Podcast 11. I'm not going to enter it into any mini leagues aside from the free one, so there is no conflict of interest there. However, if it wins the 50k, I will buy everyone on this chat half a lager and a packet of pork scratchings. So don't worry about that. I will have to do that. So how this will work generally is Dan, Paul, and I will give 3 different options for transfers and captains every week. Kind of different options, what we want to do, and we want everyone to vote on that. Our watchers can vote on the chat they wish by stating the player's name they want to vote for, and we will go with the majority. The only caveat we have during the season, if something happens, such as an injury or a drop-in following a decision that has been made, we get team news that Bruno's out for a month or whatever else, I'll have to use my initiative, God forbid, to make sure that the team doesn't bomb that weekend. So initially we're going to build this team, so we will need to fill our starting 11. So let's begin, Jen. So we'll try this. It's the first time we'll try this. So what we want from everyone on the chat. So Paul, Dan, and I now are going to say a player each. There will all be different players. And off the back of that, we just want a list on the chat of everyone's vote for who they want to put in this podcast 11 team. Ignore the names on the ready. That was like an auto thing there. So very first player in your team. So who's your banker? Dan, if I come to you first, who's the first player you would have in your team?
I think there's 2 players everyone should have, and one of them's Van Dijk.
Okay, Paul, anyone except Van Dijk?
Timo Werner.
Okay, and I'll go for Bruno. So everyone in the chat, can you either put in the chat BVD, Bruno, or Werner? And what we'll do, we'll have a really quick count up if we can, and that will form the basis of our podcast 11 team. So while we're doing that, we'll start to have a think about our next players there. While we wait for all those to come through, we'll have to delete all this.
They'll all end up being in, I think, anyway, won't they? I think them 3. I'd say if any 3 we're gonna, I think you definitely have Van Dijk, won't we? And Bruno.
So looking at the votes as they're coming through, nearly every single person is going for 15. Andrew Lee says Dan Cox. Just be pissed. We've had a couple of votes for Werner and vote for Bruno. Ian Parrin says put all 3 in. He's probably right, actually. So
I'll put all 3. Who said I'm pissed?
Do we not waste our time for that? So what we'll do, we'll put in all 3 of those because they are very likely ones that will be in all our teams to start off with. Okay, that's probably a very good. Thank you very much for that, Ian. Very good.
Should we do goalkeepers?
Very good idea. Yes, let's do goalkeepers. So, Dan, who's your goalkeeper of choice?
McCarthy.
Okay, Paul.
Ramsdale.
one and two of them as well. I'll go for Lloris then. So can we have votes for Ramsdale, McCarthy, and Lloris, please? Cat, and kick off with goalie. I think probably 5 or 6 of these are probably fairly. Now, off the podcast version all the way to. So we've had one Ramsdale. Okay, so I think it's fair to say McCarthy wins there. So it looks like we've had about 17 or 18 McCarthy, 5 Llorises, and a couple of Ramsdales. So McCarthy goes in goals for the podcast team. Team is probably becoming quite similar to what we thought it might be. Okay, next player then in the team. So we've got one now for each position. We've got the kind of spine of the team. Paul, who do you think is next?
Aubameyang.
Okay, Dan, who do you think is next on the team?
Yeah, Aubameyang.
No, you can't have Aubameyang.
I've got to say someone else. Who we got, Werner?
I'll go for
Kane.
No, okay, so Kane. I'll go for Salah. So it's Aubameyang, Kane, or Salah. So some interesting ones there because imagine there may be a split between Aubameyang and Salah. I'm not so sure about Kane, but we will see now. So could you vote, everyone, Aubameyang, Kane, or Salah as our second striker spot, go alongside Werner? Message from Ray Allen, average 0.3 tackles in 18-19. That is incredible. So the votes are coming through. 6, 7, 8 Aubameyangs, 1 Salah, 1 Kane. I think it's clear there that Aubameyang is definitely the winner there. We've had a lot of Orbers through. A couple of Kanes, 1 or 2 Salahs. Looks like Aubameyang winner there. Thank you so much again for everyone who has voted there. So Aubameyang takes his pride of place in our podcast 11 team. Okay, next pick. This is maybe where it starts to get a little bit interesting. Dan, who would your next pick be for this team?
Vinagre.
I was just going to say Vinagre as well. Paul?
James Justin.
You say Justin, you say Vinagre. I am going to say Robertson. So we got Robertson, Vinagre, or Justin. I need to think about this one because there's about a 4 million price difference. So depending on what you want to do a bit later, this could be quite an important one. So Robertson, Vinagre, or Justin. This is for the second defender spot. Sit alongside Van Dijk in our team.
It's going to be Vinegar. Look. He's getting loads.
A lot of vinegar at the moment.
I hate when you type that in the old WhatsApp comes through as vinaigrette.
Yeah.
I just send vinaigrette. I just can't be bothered to change it.
Had 8 vinegars, 9 vinegars, 5 Robertsons. Interesting, no Justins. That is quite interesting actually. So there's not a lot of love for Justin.
A few Robertson coming in.
I think it looks like Vinagre has won that one, but it's an interesting one with Robertson because we do have Robertson. It means you obviously have to, have a cheap midfield or a very cheap striker. So we will put Vinagre in there. 5 Vinagre, wasn't he? Vinagre's in. Okay, next player. Paul, who would the next player be in your team?
We'll go. We've filled 2 striker spots, right?
Yes.
So there's one still available. So I'll go back to Salah for the 3rd striker spot.
Okay, so Paul is going for Salah. I will say Kane, Dan, Salah, or Kane. You don't have to go for a striker. You can go for whoever you want.
Antonio.
Okay, so Salah, Kane, or Antonio. They're the 3 options for this one. This one will be interesting because if there's no Kane, it means that we may have to use transfer or be quite creative with the rest of our team for the Sunday game. Don't have a Leicester or a Spurs player, but we will see. That goes now. Getting a few Kanes. James, Big, Salah, 5 Kanes. Antonio's. Looking how that is coming through. It's much closer than the other ones, but Kane is coming through as the winner there. Interestingly, both Salah and Antonio were strong picks there as well. So looking like Antonio may be something we could have a look for now. But we will fill that third striker spot with Harry Kane. Okay. Paul, do you want to go Antonio again? Or was it Dan? Do you want to go Antonio again?
Yeah, Antonio, yeah.
Okay, I will go for Robertson. Paul, who do you think?
I'll go Højbjerg.
Højbjerg. Antonio, Højbjerg, or Robertson. This could be a very important pick again, because if that Robertson one doesn't come in, and if the Robertson one comes in, we haven't got a lot of budget left. We'll be scraping the barrel. See. So Antonio, Højbjerg, or Robertson. This is for our 8th pick in our team. Looking like a very decent but a very familiar team to a lot. But it's good, and this is what you'd expect, right? Wow, look at this. Hell of a mix. Wow. It's a massive mix there of Antonios, Robertsons, and Højbjergs. Looks like Antonio might just be coming in ahead of the others, but that was very close there, and we had a lot of comments through and a real mixture. But it looked like Antonio is going to take it. Thanks again, everyone, for voting on that one. So Antonio takes that spot at 8 million. He probably is a bargain. I think he's a really good option there on that. Especially in that first game. So in terms of budget left, right, we need to have a think about this now. We've only got 22.9 million worth of budget left with 3 spots to fill. So bear this in mind when we're making our next picks. If you take Robertson, it means you've only got about 6 million left each then for 2 players. So we do need to bear this in mind. Okay, Paul, who's your 9th pick?
We talked about Stuart Armstrong earlier on, so Armstrong.
Dan.
Justin.
Okay, so Armstrong, Justin. I'm tempted to chuck the cat amongst the pigeons and chuck in Robertson again, but I will go for Højbjerg. So Højbjerg and Højbjerg, Justin, or Armstrong. So you can either have that second cheap defender, or that fills our 3rd midfield spot. Just to answer, Marius says you'll end up with Thomas or Brownhill.
He's right.
Just to answer Andrew Lee, no one has said anything about Sancho's potential price.
Sancho's not coming, is he?
No, not now, but they haven't mentioned him. Okay, so we're getting the votes through. We've had 5 for Armstrong, 2 for Justin, 1 for Højbjerg, 6 for Armstrong, 3 for Justin. Keep the votes coming through, guys. This is quite an important one, this one. A few more for Justin. Armstrong. It's quite long for Armstrong. Armstrong looks like he's taking it. So we've had about 12 or 13 for Armstrong. And we have had a few through for Justin. Interestingly, nothing through for Højbjerg, even though Højbjerg had quite a lot of votes in an earlier one. I think people are starting to think about the budget, in all fairness. So really good shout there. Looks like Armstrong has taken it. So Armstrong at 7.1. Very good price. I think that's probably quite wise, actually. Because we would have been in a bit of trouble there. We hadn't have done that. Find Armstrong. There's Armstrong there. Okay, so we've got 15.8 million, which means now that we can't have Robertson or TAA because we have to have 2 defenders. Well, I say that. Apology, we don't have to have defenders. We have to have 2 players. So again, so let's go for a defender first then, because then with that final choice, then obviously he can be a defender or a midfielder based on formation. So 10th pick, Dan, who would your 10th pick be? We've only got 15.8 million left to spend.
I'll go easy and say Justin.
Okay, Paul.
I will go Kyle Walker-Peters, 7.3 million.
That's a nice shout. So Justin, Kyle Walker-Peters. I'm scrabbling to think of a decent defender price at the moment. I'll chuck in Højbjerg again because I can't think of one. So that would just be 3-4-3. So 10th vote then we have got Justin, Kyle Walker-Peters, or Højbjerg. If you go for Højbjerg, he'll make it 3-4-3. Good shout, I missed out there on bloody Egan. We've had a lot through for Justin there. Everyone's going for Justin, so we will chuck James Justin in there. This team is looking incredibly familiar indeed. Find Justin at 6.3. Okay, which leaves us 9.5 million then. Lovely. Or either a defender or a midfielder. So since I've been tucked up the last few picks, I am going to go for Azpilicueta for this last one. But you do have 9.5 million, gents, left for this final pick. Bear in mind, if we do want to do Orba to KDB later, we need to keep 0.1 back. It's just something to think about as well. So really, you probably got 9.4.
Me?
Yeah, either really.
Yeah. I'll go Joe Gomez, 9.3.
Pig, I was going to say him.
Oh, wow. That's a left field pick, but I like it.
I was going to say Gomez. Pulisic.
Okay, Gomez, Azpilicueta, or Pulisic. I like this because this is not really one which we kind of talked about as being in our teams. Good shout in the chat off Ian Parren, Ziyech there, but we've already picked, sadly. So Gomez, Azpilicueta, or Pulisic. Please let us know who you want. So add a couple through.
We should have maybe allowed the participants on the chat to come up with the first three.
We should have. Okay, so we're having our first one through. A couple of Gomez, a couple of Pulisic. Gomez, Aspi, Gomez, Pulisic. Gomez at the moment is looking favourite. Gomez or Azpilicueta. Have a few more votes, guys. It's kind of tied at the moment between Gomez, Azpilicueta, Pulisic. Sorry, it's very, very close between Gomez and Pulisic. You've had a few Aspies now in as well. Pulisic. Aaron Alton says Pulisic. This is decent. I think we're very, very tied between Gomez and Pulisic. So can we just have one more vote? Let's just have a stream through for Gomez or Pulisic, guys. Let's have a stream of answers down now for Gomez or Pulisic. If you voted, please vote again. We will look at what it is. It's quite an important one for our final one. If you voted, please vote again. Looks like a lovely looking team. I'm very excited because it's my second team. I'm going to win the 50k.
That'll finish above your main team.
Probably. Well, you cheeky sod.
I'm going to.
I'll show you.
I'm going to. Everyone that sends me a DM this week for my team, I'm just going to say, just watch this podcast, and that's a solid team. And
right, we're going to masses of Gomez's through. So we'll go for Gomez. So Gomez takes that final spot at 9.3 million. That is our team. Confirmed 10 transfers. Confirmed 10 transfers. That. So this is our team, ladies and gents.
Your seasonal total.
Thank you very much for this. This is the team now which we, as a team, will manage. We've just got one last thing to do, although I think it is fairly obvious. We don't want to waste anyone's time. So, captains for the first game week. I'm assuming we are going Aubameyang, Kane, and Werner because obviously the probably the teams were picked with that in mind. I'll just make sure I do those now. I will just get them in now. Aubameyang, Kane, and Werner, captains confirmed. So this is our team now, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for that. It is a decent team. Ian Parron says decent team. That I completely agree. I haven't really thought of Gomez, so that's quite interesting that our podcast thought of that. So what we'll do every week now, guys, we will manage this as a team. So next week we'll look at, you know, if we're going to make a transfer or not, and captains or not. What we will do, how we will look to do it, as I say, is Paul, Dan, and I will make a suggestion every week. It has to be a different one as well. You know, a different suggestion every week. You know, there's no point us all saying, "Oh, we'll all captain Salah or wherever else." You know, every single week, for example, and then it's up to you guys to actually make it. Really good point from Marius. That shows it's hard to find room for Trent. I completely agree. If I just flick to my other team just to show everyone, I'm hoping I've updated it. Yes, this is my other team. So it's very, very similar there, as we can see. The only changes really. So I did go for Aspilicueta and Højbjerg ahead of Armstrong and Gomez. So, you know, it's very, very similar and familiar looking teams. So thank you everyone for that. Hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate, you know, it's probably a bit clunky and a bit slow. It's the only time, you know, that and overhaul time, the only time we'll have to actually do that. But it's given us a really good start, and hopefully it's given everyone, you know, especially kind of lesser experienced players, an idea of what kind of template team is. So I'll just run through it once more for our podcast listeners. We've got McCarthy in goals. Oh, I'm on the wrong team. We've got McCarthy in goals. We then got Gomez, Van Dijk, Vinagre, and Justin, Antonio, Armstrong, and Bruno Fernandes, and Kane, Aubameyang, and Werner. We captain Aubameyang on the Saturday, captain Kane on the Sunday, and captain Werner on the Monday. If anything does happen to this team, obviously, you know, we'll make a call. If Gomez goes out, we'll stick Pulisic in. You know, we'll go with the second. So thank you everyone for that. That was really, really good. So finally, we move on to Dan's rant. So Dan, what has upset you this week, if anything?
Loads, mate. Loads. I'll quickly say, at the hub, we've got our £500 Sky League you can win. There's only 366 teams in it. So sign up for the hub, get involved. You know, think of that sign up fee for the hub as your entry into that mini league. That's well worth doing. Plus, you get to see all this Ian's transfer planner, the stats, everything. This week, what's annoyed me? New listeners might not know, but there's a cat that lives around here that's more famous than me, which is annoying. He's got 4,000 followers on Twitter. I've only got like 2,000 or something. That's annoying. Sort of more annoying that people who aren't any good at Fantasy Premier League have about 10,000 followers. Never done anything. They've got finished 60,000 and they've got like 10,000 followers.
Not that you're bitter, mate.
No, annoying, isn't it? So what has annoyed me? Do you know what did annoy me just before we came on? Do you see Sky Fantasy tweeted out? They got Akin Fenway. I ain't going to say it to his face. He's huge. Him and like Laura Woods. Oh, who's he going to pick for Sky? What does he know about Sky Fantasy? And especially she's on everything. That annoys me. Why not ask us? Like that annoys me. And Twitter. That if you are new to Sky, I know I'm coming across aggressive now, but we are chilled out and cool. Do you know what I mean? I've seen on Twitter all week. They're kicking off each other, aren't they? Getting at each other. We don't want. If you're new to Sky, we don't want none of that shit over here. Just chill out. Do you know what I mean? Like so, the Twitter God people need to calm down on it, especially like Fantasy Premier League. They're all nuts, in they? But that's what annoyed me this week.
Thank you, Dan. Right to be annoyed, I think, especially about the cat who's got
4,000 followers. Oh, do you want to give it another plug, right? I think I'll just bung this on eBay, right? My Jeff Stelling shirt. If anyone wants to buy it, I'm going to bung it on eBay. So that's on there now.
Awesome, mate. Thanks for that. Glad we can help you with your, your personal selling and shopping. Great stuff. Okay, so thank you everyone so much as usual for your support and interaction with us on this live stream. Appreciate these last two have been very, very long ones, kind of like hour and a half ones. For those who are new, from next week onwards, they'll just be a weekly sort of roundup, and captain picks and
stuff.
It
won't be this long.
It's not going to be long. I'd imagine it'd probably be 30 to 45 minutes potentially, because obviously there's only the last next game week to talk about. We hope you'd enjoyed these first two pre-season ones. It's the first time we've done pre-season ones because we didn't start this podcast till January last year. So really appreciate everyone's support and interaction with us. We will be back next week, where no doubt we will be cursing our luck and wondering why the fuck we captained Aubameyang over Salah. One favour, could everyone please retweet the podcast when we tweet it out? It'll probably be tomorrow morning now, as we have got a bit of a late one. So Dan, where can people find you?
Might have a moment as well, right? So Twitter, Dan Cox 82. Although don't be pestering me all week. What's your team? What do you think of this? I'm a busy guy.
On the hub. It'll be on the hub on Friday.
It'll be on the hub. Or my biggest advice, if you're listening to this, you're going to know. But that team that we've just made, if you are new, just pick that team. Make 1 or 2 swaps. That'll be fine. But Twitter, but don't start hassling me on Saturday. What's your team? It's going to be on the hub, all right? So chill out.
Thank you, everyone in the chat. Aaron, Matt, Mark, Kian, Len, Bear, Ian, Andrew, and Rob. Thank you guys for for all the kind words. Appreciate, these are long live streams. We really appreciate you joining us for this amount of time. And thank goodness Andrew O's his missus gets to watch her soaps from now on. They're not going to be as long as this, mate. Don't worry about that. Paul, where can people find you?
At Paul McAnulty 1, MCANULTY.
Thank you very much. And my Twitter handle is at Fergie222. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available in all major podcast platforms. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button. We don't seem to be getting as many likes as watchers, so please press it if you haven't already. It really does help us. And remember to subscribe in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. I see our subscriber count is going up massively. Thank you so much for everyone for sharing and for all your kind words. Our handles on Twitter.
We can buy some viewers, can't we?
No, we don't want to do any of that, mate. Don't do any of that.
That's what the other guy does, isn't it?
Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ. Our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find masses of free pre-season content and everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals. So both Liam and Dan, both former champions, will be revealing their teams on Thursday or Friday this week, and much, much more, all of which is on our new free app for iOS and Android. You'll find in the App Store searching for Fantasy Football Hub. We are currently running a 25% pre-season discount for new memberships. If you want to take advantage on this, click on the link in the description. I would, for anyone who's not a member, it's very rare we give this kind of discount. It works out roughly about £18 a year. If you're not a member, you need to think about it, because we have got so much Sky stuff on our site. It is unbelievable. You get all the insight from all the champions. You get the planners. You get the stats. You get everything we talk about here. All stuff that is on the website,
like £500,
an entry to a £500 mini league as well. We're not. It's very good value. And when people ask and talk about paying for advice and paying for websites, you're actually supporting us as well, right? So we wouldn't be able to do this stream, and unless we did that, we wouldn't have this equipment. We wouldn't be spending our. We need. It's not just about making money. It's not just a business. It's about providing a service. It's about Dan spending his time, spending 2 hours of his week writing up all his thoughts and sharing his team with everyone. It's not just a money grabbing thing, which on Twitter it seems like it is. Really, really is. We'll be back next week with some stats. Just a quick answer for Jake Dorrian. Is the Opta stats tool on the Hub app? Yes, it is. It is, mate. It's right. It's on the bottom. It's called stats. We'll be back next week with some stats from the game week 1 action, some mini league updates from the £500 mini league and the Home Nations. No, is it Home Nation? No, the Four Nations mini league.
Yeah.
And seeing how our Hub podcast 11 is getting on. Bring on game week 1. See you next Sunday live. Good night, all.